Hey everybody, today I want to talk about a very special box set that I've been after for a very long time. I got some really good help from one of my good friends that I actually met through YouTube and then also on Instagram. We talk a lot. His name is Chris, and he pointed me in the right direction for this box set, and I'm so thankful he did. It is the John Lennon box set. This is a UK box set. This was released in 1981. And I think most people refer to it as the JLB8 box set, and that is the catalog number that's on the back here. And this was released obviously in 1981, which was it was just shortly after John had passed away, of course, tragically. And so there was a big demand for his albums at that time, which makes sense. And the really amazing thing about this box set is that these are all cut from the original UK master tapes. With an all analog signal, of course, and some of them were even cut by Harry T. Moss, who cut a number of the Beatles albums that are in the Beatles Blue Box set that was released in, I think, 1978, but they produced that from like 1978 all the way up to like 1986, I believe, the Blue Box was produced. So this is basically like the John Lennon equivalent of the Beatles Blue Box, which of course I have praised numerous times on this channel. I know Andrew from Parlogram talks about how great that box set is as well. So I was very excited to get my hands on this John Lennon box set. So I got this on eBay, and as you can tell, the box itself is not in the best condition. There's definitely some like water damage or something like that. Thankfully, the records inside are near mint, is what I would say. But let me show you a good shot here of the box. There's the front. Here is the back. So with this box set, you get Live Peace in Toronto, and then all the way up to the compilation Shaved Fish. And here's what the spine looks like. Not sure if that's showing up or not. No, not really. Oh well, it just says John Lennon. But yeah, the box has had some issues, as you can see. But when I got this on eBay, the person selling it did list that the rock and roll album was missing from this. So what I did was I right away ordered a pressing of the rock and roll album from the UK. I believe the pressing I got rock and roll is from 1982 on the Music for Pleasure label. I'll show you that in here pretty soon. But it's definitely period correct for this box set, and it was cut by Harry T. Moss. So really, it totally works in this box set. So I'm going to show you exactly what you get in this box set. I'll show you each of the records. I'll talk to you a little bit about how each one of them sounded to me, and just kind of give you an overview of this box set. Now, I haven't seen a lot of people really talk about this box set yet, and I think it's a really great way to get some of the best sounding John Lennon albums all together in one box. So the box opens. I'll try to open this as best I can on camera here. Opens like that, and all the albums are kind of stuffed in here. As you can see, they're kind of all sticking out. The box actually needs to be a little bit bigger, in my opinion, but anyway, let me show you what you get. First off, they included a reproduction of the Liverpool Echo did a John Lennon tribute when John passed away, and they've included a reproduction of it here. I'm not going to show you the whole thing. It's not necessarily a booklet for this box set. They just included it, I guess. It's just like a bonus feature thing. It doesn't even mention the box set at all. But it's just got some articles about John. And overall, I think it's not all that interesting, to me at least. But cool they included it. At the time, I guess, in 1981, you were lucky to get anything extra in a box set. So there's that Liverpool Echo reproduction. Then the first album in the box set, and this one was when it was assembled, you can see it was kind of not exactly folded over correctly, so you get a little bit of an extra thing on the bottom there. But this is the Plastic Ono Band's Live Peace in Toronto, 1969. And I'm a big fan of this album. I've always loved the first side, which is the side that features John, of course. Second side features 2 Yoko songs, and if you're in the mood for that, they aren't that bad. But generally speaking, I only listen to the first side. but it's a great performance with John and Eric Clapton on guitar, Klaus Voormann on bass, Alan White on drums, and Yoko is doing her Yoko thing as well. Really, just a lot of energy, and just great to hear John singing live again after, for a long time he didn't sing live because the Beatles weren't performing concerts anymore. So this is John's first big concert since the Beatles and since like the Rooftop, really. But just a great performance. And the record is, of course, on the Apple label. Let's see if I can get closer there for you. Here we go. And all of these records, except for one, and I will talk about that, they all pretty much, I think, were unplayed. They look to be in totally near mint condition is how I would describe them. And this sounded absolutely amazing. Just super warm, really nice bass. The bass that I've come to just love and know that only records can reproduce this bass sound. And specifically records that are pressed with an all analog signal. It's just a bass sound that is so authentic that if you've ever been to like a small venue and seen a band play and you hear the bass, that's how the bass sounds on this particular record. It's so nice. The bass sound, I just love that full, authentic sounding bass. It's just so cool to get. And this record definitely has that. Just a lot of great energy and just a beautiful sounding record. So highly recommend this live piece in Toronto from this box set. And I will be putting these in better inner sleeves, because right now it's just in the paper sleeve. But I have those on order, so for the time being, they're all right in here. I don't know if I showed you the back of this or not. There's the back. A little bit of water damage on the sleeve here, as you can see, but it doesn't bother me. Okay, next up, John Lennon Plastic Ono Band. Here's the back. By the way, my daughter Eleanor, I gave her just a really beat up old US copy of the Plastic Ono Band album because she loves this back photo of John. She calls it Baby John, and she just kind of carries it all over the house. It's very cute. So I like this photo even more now because of Eleanor. So this album, it sounds great, first off, but there are some interesting things or issues on here. On the song Remember, the first song on side 2, it is like the low end is just so over the top, and it's actually distorting on this particular pressing. So I don't know if the second side of this was just cut too loud. That's what I would suspect. I don't know if this is a Harry T. Moss cutting or not. I don't see his name in the dead wax on side 2 here, but that was a bit of a problem. Side 1, on the other hand, though, sounded absolutely great. Just as good as Live Piece in Toronto. Just that really full, rich analog sound. Just, if you're going to listen to Plastic Ono Band, this is the way you want to hear it. You want to get an original, either an original UK pressing from 1970 or the next best thing, one of these 1980s pressings, UK pressings. Just an amazing sound. Of course, with the exception of this side 2, Remember, the first song. Definitely the bass is distorting. But in a way, I gotta say, it doesn't ruin the song. It definitely is too much, and it's not the perfect way I want to hear it, but it doesn't overwhelm and actually like ruin the whole song like a lot of some pressings can do that if the bass is just too much and distorting. The other thing I'll say is that the other songs on side 2 are mostly kind of like the quieter songs, like Love, Look at Me, God. Those are all kind of more laid back. The only other song that's heavier is Well on here, and that one also almost distorts, is what I would say. It's not as bad as Remember, but it almost does. So I will say though, I do have an original UK pressing of Plastic Ono Band. I think it's from 1971 or 2. It's not a first pressing. It's a repress, but it also almost distorts on Remember. It's not as bad as this. So I think all of the original pressings of that song do have that problem. Love to know in the comments below if you have that same experience with some of your, if you have an original pressing of Plastic Ono Band. But on here, on this particular one, it's definitely worse than any of the other ones I've ever heard. But don't let that stop you from picking this up if you find it in a record shop. All right. And for those of you who are interested to know, the original sleeves here, I don't know if this will show up on camera or not. It does say right here, 1180. So this was cut or pressed November of 1980. So interesting to kind of note. And from what I read online, a lot of people say, and I believe this to be true, that when they assembled this box set, they just grabbed all of the John Lennon albums that they already had printed up, put them all together and put them into this box set. They didn't specifically press these just for the box set. Some of them they maybe did, but I think a lot of them they just took whatever backlog they had of these albums and put them together into the box set, as you can see with the date on this one. Because of course, November of 1980, John was still with us. So there's that. Okay, next up is Imagine, and this sounds absolutely great. Now, I actually already owned a pressing of this particular pressing before. I have it in my collection, a 1981 UK pressing of Imagine, and it also sounded absolutely great. It was my go-to pressing for Imagine, but it's nice to have another one, and this one sounds identical to the one that I already had in my collection. I think the stampers are actually a little, I don't know if they're exactly the same, but they're definitely pressed, I think either just like a year apart. I think this one was pressed in 1982, and the one I have on my shelf here was 81. Oh no, this is 81 also, as it says on the inner sleeve here. So it just sounds really, really, really nice. And I'm sure you'll be annoyed if I keep saying this over and over again, but it's true that it's just that warm, full analog sound that I just love and cannot get enough of. I believe this is does have HTM etched in, oh no, it has Pecco, P-E-C-K-O, and that is a cutting engineer. I think they did cuttings in the UK. I think they did the US too, I could be wrong. But like, I know like Pecco and Duck, that's like a famous etching that's in Led Zeppelin 4. And those pressings are excellent of Led Zeppelin. So Pecco, I don't know the actual story of that person's full name. I just know Pecco is etched in there. They did really, really great work in the 1970s, and it's true for this John Lennon pressing of Imagine. All right. And by the way, this does come with the John Lennon Imagine poster where he's playing the white piano. I'm not going to take it out. And it also comes with the postcard of John wrestling the pig, which is his parody of Paul's Ram album. So included in this Imagine album. Here's where things take a turn in sound quality. And this might just be true just for this particular box set. If you watched my last video where I showed a new record cleaning machine that I was sent, this record I cleaned in that machine, and while the cleaning did improve the overall quality of the pressing, the sound quality I think is just kind of lacking on this album. This is John and Yoko's Sometime in New York City album, and yes, I am covering up a specific song. I'm sure a lot of you know about it. If you don't know about it, look at this album on Wikipedia. It's just a song. I actually like the song musically, but lyrically it's very controversial is what I'll say. So I'm just not going to talk about it. But this album was released in 1972. It's John and Yoko's super, super political album. I've never really liked this album all that much as far as the songs. I like a couple of songs on here. My favorite song here is actually a Yoko song called Sisters of Sisters. It's just kind of like a 1950s kind of sounding song, and actually I just like the way Yoko sings it. It's got some cool energy. And the other song I like on here is Luck of the Irish. I've always liked that song. But overall, this is not an album that I listen to very, very much. And like I said, the sound quality on here, it's very brittle, just kind of thin sounding. And I suspect that because this is recorded in America, it was recorded in New York, that I think the master tapes for this album were probably kept in America, and then they sent over, tape copies to the UK to press. That's what I'm just guessing. I could be totally wrong with that. But it definitely doesn't sound like this was cut from the best master possible. It's just lacking something. If you compare this to like Imagine or Live Piece in Toronto or Plastic Ono Band, it's just the quality of the sound. It's just not there. But honestly, of all the albums in this box set, I'm happy this is the one that sounds the worst, because it's my least favorite album in the box set. So there you go. John Lennon and Yoko's Sometime in New York City. I'm not even going to bother to show the records, but I will say that it is a gatefold, and it is a double album. The second album it's a bunch of live recordings. One side is John and Yoko with Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention, and then the other side is John and Yoko, I think at some London show, and they played Cold Turkey and another Yoko song for like a very, very long time with a huge band, including George Harrison on guitar, Eric Clapton on guitar, Billy Preston. And while that sounds like a really awesome lineup of people, it's a bit of a mess, is what I would say. So worth sitting through, I guess, one time in your life. That was Sometime in New York City. Next up, this is the absolute gem and the highlight of this whole box set for me personally. This is John Lennon's Mind Games album. And for those of you who don't know, or if you do know on my channel here, I love Mind Games. I've always liked Mind Games. I think it's totally underrated. Of course, they just did, this year they put out a huge box set for Mind Games. They remixed it, remastered it, included a bunch of outtakes and all that kind of stuff, different versions of the songs. And I did enjoy that box set. But the original mix of the album is still my favorite mix. And this UK pressing of Mind Games is my new favorite pressing of this album. It is so much better than the US pressings, and I have a ton of US pressings of this album. I think I have like 6 different ones from different time periods and all that kind of stuff. And I have an original UK pressing of this as well, but this beats the original UK pressing as well. There's just something magical about this one, and I'm going to tell you exactly what's going on in the Dead Wax. So if you want to try to find this one, you can. I believe it's got Harry T. Moss. No, there is no Harry T. Moss HTM in this, but it is, of course, on the Apple label. And I'll give you a good shot of this. And then side 2. And the matrix on this is, side 1 is -4, and side 2 is -3. Now, I haven't compared this to my original UK pressing. I don't know if they're the same or what, but this particular pressing is just absolutely phenomenal. If you are in the camp where you think Mind Games, the original mix, has always sounded kind of muddy and just kind of lifeless, this will change your mind. It's still, obviously, the recording of Mind Games, it's still what it is. And it was produced by John, and John had a specific sound he was going for. That is still there, and some people, it's not their cup of tea. For me, it doesn't bother me. I've always liked that kind of wall of sound recording technique that he kind of liked. But on this particular pressing, things are just more defined. There's just beautiful guitar work. There's some guitar work on here that I wasn't even aware of before that I heard on this particular pressing. Same thing with backing vocals and like horn parts. I'm hearing parts in here that I just wasn't either aware of before, or now that they're just coming through with more clarity. Just some beautiful, beautiful arrangements, and just my absolute new go-to pressing for Mind Games. So if you can get your hands on this, highly, highly recommend it. And I would imagine this is a pressing at least from, maybe this is like one of the 1970s ones they just threw in this box set because they had so many left over. Or maybe this was recut for this 1981 box set. I don't really know. All I know is it just sounds absolutely great. So if you can try to pick this up, do it, because it's great. How many times can I say great? A lot more. Okay. Next up, Walls and Bridges, another one of my favorite John Lennon albums. I like all of John's albums, of course, but I really, really love Walls and Bridges. And of course, this one does have the cool flaps like they did when you first got it. There's the back cover. Now this one also sounds really good. It doesn't sound as good as Mind Games. It doesn't sound as good as Imagine or Plastic Ono Band or Live Peace in Toronto. It sounds better than Sometime in New York City, of course. But I have a suspicion about this one as well. So this was recorded in America, of course. It was recorded in New York. And interestingly enough, it is on the Apple label, of course. But it was cut and it was mastered in America. And this was, of course, pressed in the UK because it's from the UK box set. But in the dead wax, it has the American, on side 2 here. Side 1 doesn't have this, but side 2, it has the American matrix number, and it's crossed out, and then on top of it has been put the British pressing matrix number. So it makes me think that they may have used or been sent the American, what do you call them, the lacquers to press this in the UK. I know that sounds really crazy, but it just seems weird that they would have the American matrix number on side 2 that's been now etched, crossed out, and then over it has been put a British pressing number. Just kind of suspicious. And the sound quality, like I said, it just isn't as rich and as just present as some of these other true UK pressings. That being said, it's not bad in any way at all. It still sounds very, very good. It's just not the best sounding Walls and Bridges that I've heard or that I have in my collection. Okay. And this one has always been a tricky one to have as a record sleeve because you have to put the record in where these delicate flaps go. So slide it in carefully. And of course it does come with the original booklet that has the lyrics in there and tells you who plays what, which is nice. Okay, we'll put that back in the box. Walls and Bridges. Great album, of course. Next up. Now this is the one that I had to track this down on its own. This is John Lennon's rock and roll album, of course. And this is on the Music for Pleasure album that was released in the UK. And this is a 1982 pressing of this album. So this box set came out in 81. I couldn't track down a 1981 pressing of rock and roll. The closest I could come was this UK 82 pressing. So it's close enough in my opinion. And this sounds wonderful. Let me show you the back there. There's the back. And of course, they redid the album cover. Sorry, my memory card got full, but I'm back. So they redid the album cover for this. They just made the logo a lot bigger there, where it says John Lennon Rock and Roll. And of course, the back looks different as well. And it includes a quote from John. It says, "You should have been there." And he uses his different name, Dr. Winston O. Boogie. And this, like I was saying earlier, it sounds really, really great. This is now my new go-to pressing for the rock and roll album. Now, the rock and roll album has never sounded all that great to me from all the pressings I've heard. I have a bunch of US pressings of this. I have the represses that were released on like the Capitol like budget label. I think I have a German pressing of it. They all are just fine, but this one sounds much better than those. And it's on this Music for Pleasure label, as you can see. Now, this label released some other Beatle releases as well. They released the Beatles Rock and Roll Music album. I think they did a couple of other Beatle compilations as well. I think they put out the George Harrison's Greatest Hits on the Music for Pleasure label as well. And this particular pressing, though, was cut by Harry T. Moss. You have HTM in the dead wax on, it's not on side 1, but it's definitely on side 2. Yeah, Harry T. Moss is on side 2. And it's just a really, really nice pressing. So much fun to listen to. This is not an album I listen to all that much, I gotta say, but every once in a while I get in that mood where I want to hear John singing these classic rock and roll songs. And it's just always a pleasure to listen to it. And while the sessions themselves were, of course, they had a lot of problems, the album really, really works well, and it's a fun thing to listen to. So, the Rock and Roll album by John Lennon. And last but not least, you get Shaved Fish. And this is another one that doesn't sound all that great. And there's a reason for that. This is a compilation that was put together by John himself, released in 1975. And you can see there's the back there. And this is what the inner sleeve looks like. You get lyrics on one side and a red circle on the other side, which I believe is to represent the Japanese flag. It doesn't sound horrible, but it's on the Apple label right there, as you can see. There's a quote from John where he talks about putting this together, and he says that when he went to go assemble this album, he was trying to find the original master tapes for some of these singles he released, like Instant Karma and Cold Turkey, and EMI either couldn't locate them or just didn't want to give them to John, didn't want to bother. So John had to actually use dubbed masters for this compilation. So some of these just are not from the actual master tapes, they're from like dubs. And it kind of shows. Some of them are kind of muddy sounding. Some of them sound better than others, of course. None of them are horrible, as I'll say. And if you're new to John Lennon, this is definitely a great compilation of his singles and best-known songs from his solo career. And at the time, this was the only place you could get Instant Karma and Cold Turkey, some of those early singles from John, Power to the People, on an album in the UK. Of course, they released numerous John Lennon compilations later on, but this for a long time was the way to get some of John's best songs. Always on this compilation, Shaved Fish. So nice that they included it in this box as well. So those are the albums in this box set, and I'm really, really happy to have this in my collection now, because ever since I heard about it a couple of years ago, I knew I wanted to get my hands on it. They're not easy to find, and they're kind of expensive online, that I've noticed. But if you can find one, I'd say for like around $100 or 100 or below, I think it's totally worth trying to pick up. And in my case, mine was a little under $100, but of course it was missing the rock and roll album, and the box itself is not in the best shape. So, but for me, as a collector, that doesn't really bother me. I'm more interested in the sound of the records. So it was fine with me. You can get your hands on this box set, highly recommend it. It's all analog cut, just great sounding. And John's solo work, I think, this is a kind of a crazy statement, but I think it's really underrated. He made some amazing albums, and he's just an amazing solo artist, as well as obviously a member of the Beatles. But you know, all the Beatles, their solo careers all get overshadowed by the fact that they were in the Beatles, and rightfully so. The Beatles are just a special thing that, you know, they're the Beatles. You can never be better than that. So the solo material is always going to be overshadowed by the Beatles, but John's solo material, excellent stuff, and this box set really represents it well. So John Lennon 1981 box set. Love to know in the comments below if you own this box set and what your thoughts are on it. Stay tuned. I got a lot more videos coming your way. I got a lot of great records for Christmas. My birthday was also in December, so I got a lot of great gifts, including this John Lennon Mind Games book, which I'm almost done reading. And when I'm done with it, I will give you my thoughts on it. But for now, that's it. So hope you're all doing well. Take care and bye for now.